Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
And we're back on its Monday. Scottish football is not over just yet, Robbie. The Premier League playoff is on tonight. We've got two good teams on, and I wouldn't say we've got a great team on, Robbie, but me and you all need to do it tonight, eh?
Aye, I think we're good enough. I think we're good.
No, we're doing well. Robbie, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, mate. I'm buzzing for tonight. After the first leg, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. We maybe thought we might have had a better idea of who's potentially gone through tonight, but it's all even after the first game, so there's still a lot to play for.
Yeah, it's all even, Stephen. One of the things that I said to Michael the other day, and I said to Ethan as well, that I just found it strange, Robbie, that they played this game on a Monday night. I thought a bank holiday Monday, when I just felt they could have played on a bank holiday this Sunday in terms of it would have made more sense in terms of getting more fans into the game. But people are back to their work tomorrow, they're back to college, they're back to university. So I just think surely we should be playing to the advantage, because I don't know about Thursday night, Robbie, but I thought the crowd was nothing short of appalling for a playoff match. But I mean, what are you making of this game tonight?
I mean, look, I don't know if Mikey, who's obviously regular on the show, is going to make the trip up to Dingwall, but for any Livingston fan that is, and I don't know the numbers, but it's going to be quite a trip up and back, especially on a Monday night. So credit first of all, credit to any of the fans that are making the trip, because it's not going to be an easy trip up at all, especially in the conditions that are currently in Scotland now. So it's a bit frustrating for them, but look, it's still going to be a good game. Both get two teams that I'd argue are evenly matched, although in separate divisions. I think Livingston have got enough quality to compete with Ross County. After the first leg, you've got to say David Martindale's probably the more frustrating manager that his side's not ahead going into the this tonight, because I thought Livingston played kind of well in the first half, found themselves unlucky, but look, Ross County have given themselves a lifeline. We know how crucial Ronan Hale is to Ross County, and I think once again tonight he could prove the difference.
Yeah, I said to Michael and Ethan on Friday, in terms of, I just felt that was a very good point for Don, because I just felt like that would have been the game plan going into it. Of course, they want to win the game, but I think a draw would have been the perfect thing, because you look at Livingston against Partick Thistle. Their home record this season, apart from the last game of the season against Partick's been nothing short of remarkable. It's been a hard place to go. So I think if you're Don, you're taking that point and running away and snapping the hand off, as we would say, Robbie. But the match on Friday was scarred right at the end with a very stupid, idiotic supporter, Robbie, once again. And I don't know why this the ugly head of Scottish football fans is reading again, because I'm really disappointed, because there's been so much to celebrate this season. I think the success story of St Mirren, even David Gray over the Hibs, Simo Valakari's done a great job. Tony Docherty at Dundee, I thought he done really well. And then you've got so many great stories like Falkirk, East Kilbride. For them to get up as well, I think there's so many good success stories, Robbie. And then let's not forget yesterday about Clydebank. I think Clydebank's a great story, and hopefully they can do well in the lower league and get promoted as well, because I think these teams are great, Robbie. And I watch a lot of junior football, and I think to see Clydebank up there and doing well, I think it only makes good for the game, because I think teams like Clydebank, they want to progress. And I think, no disrespect to maybe teams like Brecon a few years ago, but a lot of these clubs were just happy to be there. They weren't interested in progressing or doing well. They were just interested in staying in the division no matter how they done it.
Aye, credit my Bankies. I think it was one league defeat all season. Absolutely superb for them. They're now going up. It's another show for another day about that whole playoff system. I personally agree with the way it happened. I feel bad for, obviously, Musselburgh Athletic, who unfortunately lost, but full credit must go to Clydebank. I was listening to the owners. They were getting interviewed the other day, and they were so open and honest about, it's a fan-run club, it's so good, you see the culture in the club, the history is there, although it's been a bit of a shaky last few years, they've got some good history, so full credit must go to Clydebank. And obviously another team, Dundee United, have had a superb season as well under Jim Goodwin, so there's been a lot of good stories this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to see people interacting with the show, and he says, a very good evening. Scottish football never stops with great stories. I think he's spot on, Robbie, because there's so many stories we can get into. But first of all, the story I want you to tell me the two squads for tonight.
Yeah, so Ross County, it is Jordan Amisa, Akil Wright, Connor Randall, of course, Dalman Ronan Hale leads the line. George Harmon, Eli Campbell, Josh Nisbet, Mikey Ifete, Jordan White, Will Nightingale, and Noah Kenny make up your Ross County team. On the bench, Logan Ross, Dylan Smith, Kieran Phillips, George Robertson, Jonathan Tompkinson, Jamie Williamson, Zach Ashworth, Joe Coyle, and Alex Samuel. For Livingston, it is Pryor in goals. It will be McCowan, Pittman, Kelly, Fraser, Brandon Smith, Daniel Finlayson comes into the team, Muirhead, Montano, and last week's scorer Danny Milson on the subs. Hamilton, Donnellan, McClare, Yenge, May, Nottingham, Shinnie, Tate, and Lowell. Which I've got to say, looking at Livingston, it's a very, very strong bench.
Yeah, and that might be the key aspect to the match. Will be in terms of that bench. I just wanted to ask you about Don, right? No disrespect to what they're doing, but I said this to Michael the other day. A lot of times with Don and the recruitment from Roy McGregor, the chairman as well, it's a lot of players from down south. And I think the thing about David Martindale and Brian Rice as well, Chipper they call him, they've got a lot of very good Scottish boys around the group, and I think that can only help them as well.
I will look on Ross County and Don Cowie. I mean, the pressure's suddenly stacked onto him tonight. Not 1 in 10 games, a couple of draws in the last few. It's not been great for Ross County. And I remember we were on the show just a matter of weeks ago talking about Ross County being an outsider chance in the top 6. I mean, that's the way the league was shaping up at one point. So to see them back down here in the relegation playoffs is obviously a shame to see. But look, they're up against a tough opposition. They're up against Livingston, who, as you mentioned, have a lot of players that are experienced and they know how to handle games like this. And it could well play in their favour tonight.
Yeah, Robbie, I'm just going to ask you in terms of what you feel about Jordan White. I mean, Jordan White's been a really good player for Ross County many years, but he's not playing tonight. Is that right?
No, Jordan White is playing tonight. I believe he is. He is playing tonight.
Well, I've got a question regarding him then. I just feel like he could be that physical presence that they could be looking for.
I think it's what they need. Livingston have got a few good physical defenders in their team, so it's not going to be an easy task for specifically Ronan Hale. So you need someone like Jordan White. And I think, the question that you asked a minute ago about the experience, I think Ross County have hit the nail on the head with somebody like Jordan White. I think that's what they've got to be building the whole team around. Guys like him that know the Scottish game, know how to get physical when it's needed. Because let's be honest, in the last 3 years, Ross County have been in the playoffs and all of them. They need these guys that can actually maybe get them out of the playoffs one of these times, because the more they go into these playoff games, the more chance it's going to go the other way and they're going to end up going down at some point. So they need these type of players.
Yeah, and I've managed to grab Ethan off the subs bench to join us. Thank you, Ethan, for joining us, Free Amigos. I mean, it couldn't have been easy for you to come on after Celtic's defeat and penalties on Saturday. So fair play to you. I mean, first of all, just get your reaction to that game on Saturday. Obviously, I didn't hear your reaction to it. I was at the game, but in terms of the Celtic Aberdeen game, what was your thoughts in the game, Ethan?
Yeah, I thought Aberdeen were well deserving in the end. I don't think Celtic can have really much complaints with the end result. I don't think Celtic were good enough across the 120 minutes to deserve to beat Aberdeen. Aberdeen were set up brilliantly by Jimmy Tilleen. I think he proved a lot of Aberdeen fans that were doubting him and whether he was the right man to take them forward. Because his setup, he obviously changed the formation. It worked brilliantly. Yes, they went behind, but they stayed in the game. Obviously, nicked that goal late on, and then his substitutes as well were really good. And then Aberdeen were really good in the penalties. All of their penalties were really good. And yeah, they deserved to win. Celtic weren't good enough, and a brilliant moment for Aberdeen, first Scottish Cup in 35 years. But yeah, it wasn't the best game of football. I think we've been treated to some pretty poor games recently. Scottish Cup final I didn't think was great. Europa League final was terrible. The first leg of this match wasn't a great watch either. So hopefully tonight we get a bit better and a bit more sort of entertainment.
I'd just like to I'd like to say a quick thank you. You're welcome to Aberdeen, because Tulane definitely nicked that back five after Stephen Robinson after watching us go away to Celtic Park. So Tulane and the Aberdeen fans, you're welcome for that assist.
Yeah, I'm glad Robbie's managed to put his Stephen Robinson agenda in there somewhere. Robbie, I mean, I think it's interesting because I think Brendan Rodgers, for once, Robbie, I think he actually got his changes wrong, because I think to bring Johnny Kenny on with half an hour to go, I know Adam Ida, right? I know Adam Ida didn't play the best of matches, but he's somebody that can pop up with a match-winning moment, and I think that I don't think Johnny really did much when he was on the match, and I didn't really think the Aberdeen back four or back five were really tested once he went off.
The subs were definitely baffling. I mean, when you were left at the end of the game with the penalty takers, it was all players that obviously McGregor. I've seen someone complain online about McGregor taking one. I mean, he's the captain; he's always going to take one. But like somebody like Alistair Johnson, who, no offense to him, he probably hits 100 penalties in training, scores 99 of them. But just in that big moment, I just don't think he should have been up there. You're right with Johnny Kenny, although I will agree. I think he didn't have the greatest of games. I thought it took him a while to get settled in. I don't think he ever really did properly get settled into the game, to be honest. I thought he was always chasing shadows for most of the match, to be honest. It was just one of the games where I think Ethan summed it up that Aberdeen deserved it, because one, they were good at their system, but two, Celtic weren't very good either. I thought there was a lot of players that, for once in the team, didn't have the best of days. One player that I actually did feel bad for was Greg Taylor. I thought he had an excellent match, to be honest, but apart that, there wasn't really any star performer.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to ask you on that, Ethan. Do you think that'll be Greg Taylor's swan song? Do you think he'll leave now?
I don't know. I have a weird feeling that he might stay. I think they'll come to an agreement, and they'll get it done. Because I think, I would agree with Robbie's point completely. I thought he was one of the Celtic players that actually got pass marks at the weekend. The only sort of other one that I thought Callum McGregor was good in the game. I thought he tried to get on the ball and dictate the pace. It just never really happened. None of Celtic's attackers were really in the game at all. I mean, Celtic barely created a chance. And Dimitar Mitov didn't have many saves to make, apart from obviously the two penalties, which won Aberdeen the match. But I think that shows credit to Aberdeen's setup and how well the whole team played, that they restricted Celtic to pretty much anything, apart from an unfortunate own goal from an Aberdeen point of view off Dorrington. But yeah, I would agree. I'm unsure. I don't know. It could be Greg Taylor's last game, but I think if Celtic are thinking logically, then I think they should try and give him the money that he's looking for and sign him up, because I think if you're not doing that, then you're going to have to go into the market and find somebody else, because I know there's been talks of Jeffrey Schlupp because his contract expires, but I believe he's on 60 grand a week at Crystal Palace, so finding anywhere near to that is going to be probably what he's looking for, and Celtic aren't going to want to pay that. I imagine Kieran Tierney's probably took a hefty pay cut to come to Celtic from, I think he was on 120 grand or something at Arsenal. So I think Greg Taylor would be a really smart move for Celtic, and I think it's one they should do because they know what they're getting. He's consistent, and if Tierney has those injury problems, which he has done throughout his career, then Taylor's there to step in. Whereas if you get rid of both Taylor and Schlupp, then you're going to have to buy someone new that you don't really know what you're getting in a sense.
Yeah.
And that's the risk that Celtic look like they might take, but you never know. They might manage to sort things out, and I hope they do.
I was thinking about it last week evening. I was going to say it on the show on Friday, but I decided against it. But I'm going to say it today because I don't really care anymore. Right. But I said that to my friends last week that I just think Brendan Rodgers rushed Schmeichel back from injury. I really do, I think. Because for me, Souness Hollow was looking really good, right? And it's no on the back of it. I think there was a few lapses in concentration against St Mirren. And I just felt that everybody was rushing Johnson back as well. I just think from a Celtic point of view, I don't think those two players probably should have played the game. I think Brendan Rodgers is talking about, we'll try and get Johnson to to go in for surgery and then be back in time for the final. I just think if he's not right, then don't play him. And the same with Michael. Stop rushing these guys back.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that point. Because as you said, Sinisalo barely put a foot wrong. And in all fairness, the same sense, Kasper Schmeichel, I was saying this on the pod the other day, post match, that I don't think you could attribute any goal before the weekends being his fault. And as a goalkeeper, that's a difficult thing to go through a season with not. So it's difficult because I think that's the first time where he's really let Celtic down and made a big error that's obviously led to a goal, being an own goal. But yeah, I think Celtic they weren't good enough in the day, and they were, of course, missing players, but Jota and Real Hatate especially, but they still should have enough to beat that Aberdeen team.
I think especially at home, even because he's not really tested. But in the match against St Mirren last week, I could clearly see that it wasn't fit. I could just see it.
So I was just going to say, do you not think this tells you a bit about Celtic squad depth? Because if we're coming out of a big game like this and Brendan Rodgers doesn't have the bottle to go, no, we're going to sit Schmeichel out, or we're going to sit Johnson out, or whoever else it may be, and we're going to put in a backup player, does that not tell you maybe he doesn't think the squad's strong enough?
Yeah, I think that's very true, Robbie. I think that's why he wanted a striker in January when he let go of Kyogo. I think it's come back to haunt, because see that chance that Maeda has. I don't know if he spoke about it, but I think if that's Kyogo or that's Adamida, that's a goal. But do you know why it's not a goal? Because what Maeda's done is he's been moved into the striker position once he either goes off. But see, for the whole match, he was chasing up and down the Aberdeen players. He was chasing, so he's tired. He's okay. He's a great player, but he's been told to play in many places, and that's not great for a player either. I know my mind has filled a hole, but I totally agree with Robbie. I think the strength and depth is not there, and I'm also going to say it. I don't think Yang is a player. I don't think there's a player in Yang. I don't know if you agree, Ethan, but I just think when Yang came on, nothing happened. Nothing.
Yeah, I think initially when the three subs came on, Forrest, Yang and McCowan, they all looked sharp, and for the first 5 minutes they brought something to the game, and Celtic were maybe in their best period of the day, but then Aberdeen made their changes. They obviously get the goal for their sub of the season, their player of the season, Shaden Morris, with the cross, and then after that Celtic just looked shell-shocked and could never come back. I think Yang, he's shown a lot of times that maybe he's not got what it takes to play for Celtic, but he has also shown in other times that he has. I think Yang is one that I think he would be loaned out. I don't think he would be sold, because I think that if you loan him out, then maybe he can go somewhere else and he can offer something and then come back to Celtic as a player.
And I think the biggest thing for me was, see, as soon as James Forrest came on, he was making the right passes. He was trying to shoot. He was trying to, see, James Forrest, he came on for about 5 minutes, and he done more than Yang did in the last half an hour. He was so good.
Yeah.
And
Another player who I thought, I know Dyson Maeda didn't have his best of games, and obviously you'll cut him some slack because of what he's done and the amount of goals he scored this season. But I think Nicholas Kuhn has been pretty poor for a while, and I thought he was poor at the weekend again. And that was one of the ones where a lot of Celtic fans were wanting James Forrest to start instead of him because James Forrest had played so well against St Mirren when he came on, Aberdeen when he started at Pittodrie. So yeah, and it was there was a few strange ones, but I think Celtic overall, when everyone's fit, they still should have a strong enough squad domestically to deal with whatever's put in front of them. And I think they just didn't turn up on the day. Jimmy Tilleen masterclassed it, and that's something that Brendan Rodgers ran into this season. Teams throwing curveballs at him. Rangers have obviously done it with a few of their setups, and he's not got the better of Rangers on most of the occasions this season. And obviously Jimmy Tilleen done it there on the day, and he got the better of him. So that's something Brendan Rodgers will need to work on. But I think Brendan Rodgers is a manager who always drops kind of hints that he needs more, and he always wants to push Celtic forward and strengthen the squad, which is natural with the financial success Celtic have had in recent seasons, and obviously trying to push into the Champions League again. And I don't know if you've seen, but after Rijeka won the Croatian League last night,
yes,
Celtic gets
are
seeded for the Champions League playoff, qualifying round playoff, which makes it a lot easier for them to qualify.
Yep.
So they should be doing that, but they'll have to strengthen before then as well.
And I know this is about Livingston and Don Kirby's side tonight, Robbie, but I just want to ask you about those scenes for Aberdeen as well. The open top bus. I mean, you'll remember it when Danny Lennon done those scenes in Paisley. I mean, talked about those scenes, you know. People can say, oh, Celtic missed the treble and stuff like that, but those scenes for Aberdeen were just brilliant.
Aye, we're nearly 100,000 people. Of course, I remember the 2013 Cup, but I think the one that springs to mind is the 2017 Championship under Jack Ross. I mean, the scenes for Paisley even on that day were absolutely superb. You can only imagine how the Aberdeen fans are feeling back, because waiting 35 years to win the Scottish Cup, to do it in that fashion, you know, after such a brutal end to the season. You know, it was a brilliant start. Midway through, it just completely fell off, and for, you know, they were bottling third, and, you know, weren't doing very well in the league. To then go and win the cup like that, it's a brilliant achievement, and like, the fans won't care about them finishing no third or anything like that, because that'll do. I mean, I can imagine how long the Aberdeen fans are going to be partying for. I think some have probably booked a week after work to go and celebrate. So I think they'll enjoy their moment. And look, I think Tilleen will send the message. I think he already has, that this doesn't just want to be a 1 in 35 years thing. You know, Aberdeen are one of the big clubs in our country. They want to be going out every season and competing for cups and stuff like that, because it's something they can definitely do.
Yeah, I think it's so important as well to bring in that fan base, even because I was spoke about Aberdeen winning the league against Celtic and Rangers all those years ago when Sir Alex Ferguson went to Celtic Park and won, and then they won at Easter Road in the last day of the season. But Aberdeen want to make it a regular thing, like Robbie was saying there.
Yeah, I think we can all understand that Aberdeen competing with Celtic and Rangers for titles is something that's not going to happen every season. But there's been recent years. I mean, with the start Aberdeen had, if they could continue that just a little bit of form into the second half of the season, then they really could have been pushing for second. And then they end up in fifth because they were the worst team over, I think it was the last 20 games or something like that. But they obviously won't care, as Robbie said, because I think if you had asked them, and I asked Dave this at the time after the match, would you rather take third in the Scottish Cup or fifth in the Scottish Cup? It's an obvious decision. So yeah, they'll be delighted. And you've seen that with the scenes, and I thought the Aberdeen fans were brilliant at the weekend as well. And yeah, definitely they need to build on this now. They've got a real chat. Well, it's going to be really difficult to get in the Europa League. Don't get it twisted, but If Jimmy Tulane can pull off a masterclass like he did at the weekend in that playoff round, and you never know. And then even if they do drop into the Conference League, then that's a real chance to compete and go far. Hearts obviously should have made it out of the league phase this season. They didn't.
They definitely should have.
Yeah.
Ethan.
And Aberdeen, hopefully they can be the ones to do it and really sort of add a third Scottish team, making progress in Europe, because I think we should aim for that. You look at some of the other teams that have progressed in the Conference League this season, and there's no reason why teams outside of Celtic and Rangers shouldn't be doing the same.
Yeah, I mean, before we go back to the match tonight and we talk about the team user game with Robbie, I mean, obviously there was a managerial appointment today in the Premier League, Robbie.
I don't get there's been a lot of people no backing Kettlewell already for Kilmarnock fans that I've seen online and social media, and I don't get it. Kettlewell, it's not like Kettlewell left Motherwell in a really bad position. They weren't struggling in form. I think he left on a draw. I think they won the last two before that. That all this wasn't a Kettlewell, having them bottom of the league and they were struggling to pick up points and stuff like this. It was playing some good stuff, had them in the top six. To me, Kettlewell's a very experienced manager. He's a manager that, if the rumours were going to be true about Robinson leaving, which I don't believe they are, I would have taken Kettlewell. I think that's an unpopular opinion, and I don't think a lot of the fans would agree with me, but Kettlewell's a very sensible appointment. He knows the league, and it's someone that I'd rather take than maybe someone a bit less experienced, like a Scott Brown. I think Scott Brown wouldn't do a bad job necessarily, but I don't think he's got enough experience for me. So Kettlewell for Kilmarnock's a good appointment in my opinion.
Yeah, I am mixed on it. I agree with your points that he's done well in the Premiership at points, but I also think with some of the options that were on the table for Kilmarnock, I would have really liked to see them go for Tony Docherty. But obviously maybe that couldn't happen back for certain ways.
I think he'll go to Motherwell.
Yeah, he might do. It might just be a switch round between all the clubs in the league almost. But Kettlewell, he didn't obviously end Motherwell tenure in the best way, because the fans obviously weren't happy with him and the abuse he took wasn't deserved. He doesn't deserve for him and his family to suffer something like that. But he has done well at points in the Scottish Premiership before with different clubs, so I think he's a steady appointment. I don't know if he's the most exciting one, but yeah, I think the Kilmarnock fans, a few of them are writing off, but I think they'll have to get behind him and
I don't get it because
let him see what he can do.
I don't get it because I agree with Robbie. Wouldn't you say Derek, their most previous manager, plays a great football? But what he did is he manages to get you 3 points.
I just don't get this whole hang about managers need to be playing attractive style of football. You don't. It's no the modern game. It's no Scottish football. Managers can't expect it to come into this league and play Pep Guardiola, Tiki Taka at Barcelona type style. It's never going to happen. Kilmarnock fans need to realise that. And by the way, with the players they've got, Kettlewell system's going to work very well, utilising players up there. If they can keep a hold of Kyle Vassell, I'm sure he'd be a very good player under Kettlewell. There's players in that Kilmarnock team that can work very, very well. I don't get this whole point, and I've seen it early years with us and other teams, and Motherwell fans are saying the same now. I don't get this point about you need to be playing attractive football. It just shouldn't be a hang.
I think for Kilmarnock fans, I think it's that they would rather, if you had a poor season, I think they would say they had a okay to poor season, Kilmarnock fans, obviously a drop off from last season. But I think the point is not that you need to play entertaining football, but that if you're losing with entertaining football, then it's a little bit less painful than if you're losing with unentertaining football. That's why I'm thinking of Tony Docherty, because I know Dundee done pretty poorly this season, but I mean, how Dundee plays.
It's just okay. You look at two teams that finished in the top six, St Mirren and Dundee United. Both managers don't play attractive football by any means. They're probably two of the most. I don't like using the word negative either, but the two of the probably least entertaining managers in the league, but you can see what happens when you have a manager that knows what he's doing, and it doesn't need to be the most attractive stuff. I mean, like both teams, Dundee United and St Monday, both they play attractive stuff at times. I'm not saying it's all long balls up the pitch, and some of the stuff Livingston and Hamilton were playing a couple of years ago. But what you can say is when Kettlewell comes in, it'll just be the same. It'll be probably a more defensive shaped team, but it can still play some pretty decent stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We'll just have to see what he does and how it plays out. I know the Motherwell fans weren't happy with him, with how they were playing and how he was setting them up towards the end of his tenure. And I thought they were quite harsh, because I thought Kettlewell earned enough respect with how Motherwell started the season to have the chance to sort of bring them out of the tough period that they were maybe in, but obviously it wasn't right for him with how the fans were treating him and his family. So it's fair enough, but it'll be really interesting to see how the next season pans out for a lot of teams, because you're going to have almost half of the league with new managers, it looks like.
I do think the thing for Stuart Kettlewell, though, even though he's just brand new to the job, I do think it's so important that he starts well, because like Robbie said, I think there's a sort of 50-50 split even to this early on, Robbie.
Aye, well, I mean, look, they need to start well. I know what it's like. I remember when Robinson came in, Kilmarnock were playing in the Viaplay Cup group stages, and trust me, I've learned that the last thing you want is to start bad in that group, because if Kilmarnock end up getting knocked out like we did at the first season of Robinson, the fans turn against you immediately, and it's the last thing Kettlewell will want. I'd argue it's probably more negative than positive, to be honest, for the Kilmarnock fans that I've seen personally online anyway, but look, they need to get behind them. There's a reason why he left Motherwell, obviously the stuff off the park, but on the park, again, he had them in the top six. If you were to ask any Motherwell fan, would you take top six before the season was started, they'd probably bite your horn off for it, to be honest.
Aye, and I think that's a true point. And it's like you were saying earlier, if you can keep the same core of players, do you know players that are used to playing attractive style of football? And as the person that comments there says, it's not about attractive football as playing the ball on the ground. If Kilmarnock go and they win the first 3 games of the season, nobody will care how they're playing.
Exactly.
Right.
I'll just go back to Robbie for the team news for this game.
So for Ross County, it is Amisa and goals, a back three of Wright, Nightingale and Campbell. Ifete and Harmon are the 2 wing backs, with Noah Kenny, George Randall and Nisbet in the midfield. And it is a front 2 of Jordan White and Ronan Hale for Livingston. Prior in goals, the back 4 are Brandon, McGowan, Wilson and Fraser. Pittman, Finlayson and Kelly in the midfield, with Smith on the right, Montano on the left and Muirhead through the middle.
Yeah, I was saying to Robbie earlier, Ethan, in terms of, so sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was saying to Ethan, to Robbie earlier that I think it's because the advantage for me is with David Martindale, because of the kind of more Scottish Premier League type of players. I don't know if you agree, Ethan.
I remember discussing this point on Thursday. They've definitely got more players who have sort of played in Scotland, developed their football in Scotland, and are more familiar with Scottish football. Whereas, as we seen, Ross County have got a lot of players that Don Cowie's obviously loaned in from the lower English leagues. But yeah, I think it really could go either way. I mean, it is just a one-off tie at this point. It's a cup final. It's their cup final. Both teams' cup finals. It really could go either way. I just hope for an entertaining game. Not many changes from the first game. I've noticed Ross County made 2. Probably the most notable one is Jordan White starts. He obviously won the penalty, and then Macaulay Tate drops out for Livingston's only change for Daniel Finlayson coming in. So yeah, it's a hard one to call. I just really hope for a good game, because we have been treated to some really good playoff football in the last few years, especially containing Ross County.
Do any of you guys know? Do any of you guys know the ticket prices for tonight? Because I think that the probably should have put the game about maybe a five or a tenner to try and get as many fans in there as possible, because it's so important for these clubs tonight. Because as they always say, any club, you've seen about 2,000 people losing their job at a big club like Manchester United, but I think even people like Don Cowie and always even the chef, the tea lady, everybody. It's so important because these people, if they go down to the championship, then you can be looking at so many people being let go and try to look for a new job.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the area where Ross County are and Dingwall, they're out the way, and you're not going to get many people coming from what 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away. It's going to be the people mostly of the town that are going to be there, and to just give them that extra encouragement that, you know, we're reducing the tickets here. We want you here for our support, to support the team, because it is a massive game. It could be make or break for a club like Ross County, for their Premiership status in the future, not just this season, or next season even. So it's a massively important game, and yeah, it's a real difficult one to call, but I think it will be a pretty full Dingwall, I hope. Although I don't know what the weather's like there, but it's raining outside my window here, so hopefully we don't get too many of the bad weather fans in Dingwall that don't go because of the weather.
£20 is an adult ticket for tonight, through Ross County's website. I do believe I read somewhere that Livingston has sold at the away allocation, which is only good news because it does make a more attractive prospect. You know, we were watching last week's first leg, and let's be honest, it wasn't great atmosphere-wise during the whole game. So tonight should be better, and it'll be an entertaining game. I think for me, looking a wee bit more into it, all the pressures on Don Cowie here. No wins in 10. Well, it's as simple. You need to win tonight to go through. So
Yeah,
they're going to try and get a win out of somewhere.
I would even say, Robbie, he's beat Rangers and he's drew with Celtic, but I would say this is probably the biggest managerial test of his time so far.
I think so. Aye. Football is so momentum based. You know, if you're on a losing streak, it never seems like it's going to end. If you're on a winning streak, you never seem like you're going to lose. So for Don Cowie tonight, it's probably is the biggest game in his managerial career. It's as simple as, again, you need to try and find a way to win somehow, no matter what way it is. Because if Ross County lose again, you know, as far-fetched as it is saying, if they lost tonight and went into the championship, the momentum would carry on. They'd struggle to start well, and then it all begins again, and the cycle keeps going.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you because there's been talk for a while, but do you genuinely think that if David Martindale fails tonight, then he could potentially be tempted by a Motherwell or someone else?
Yeah, I think he. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. You don't know if the jobs have been offered in the past and he's just not taken them, or. But it's strange how he never really seems to be in the real conversation for any of the Premiership jobs, other Premiership jobs, especially with the job he's done at Livingston over a number of years now, over a decade, I believe. The amount of promotions he's earned them, with the finances he's had to deal with. I know he always goes on about it, but yeah, it would be one that I'd love to see. I'd love to see David Martindale go to another club with a little bit more to spend and a little bit more of a bigger club than Livingston, you could say. But whether it will happen or not is another question.
And by the way, to credit Martindale, you know, when they went down, it would have been so easy to maybe just give up and, you know, spend a couple of years after nothing. But he's came into the championship, he's brought in, as we spoke about, experienced players, which, by the way, their bench is terrifying to look at, with how many changes they can make and how many good changes they can make. But for me, it's more the style of football.
Levy's on fire. Their bench is terrifying. Robbie was in song there.
But it wasn't just about the players about, and it's the way he changed his style. It was. I think Livy fans would be the first to admit it was quite negative in the Premiership, and rightly so. They had to play to try and get points to stay up. Now they're in the Championship, they're playing some of the best stuff I've seen Livingston play ever. I'm sure when Martin, if Livingston come up tonight, I don't think he'll want to change it. I think he'll want to bring in more players and try and play the same way, because we could have a pretty interesting Premiership lineup next season if Livingston, or even if Ross County stay in it, or to stay up. So,
who do you see being the key players tonight, Robbie?
I think for Ross County, it's pretty easy to look at the front two. Jordan White and Ronan Hale, they are the danger men. I quite like Kenny in the midfield as well. I think he's a good player. So they've got a few players for Livingston. I know I'm looking at the team, and I think Finlayson, for what I've seen his time at us, can be a dangerous player. You've got Pittman there as well, but I'm looking at the subs. I'm looking at May, Tete Yengi, the guys that can all come on and make a difference. So both teams have a few danger players at different sides of the pitch.
And in terms of you, Ethan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm not. I think Ronan Hale, he's on a good run of form. I know Ross County are on a terrible run of form, but after those 7 losses, they've obviously got 3 draws in a row. They'll now need to upgrade that to a win. He's got 3 goals in his last 3 games. 2 of them, of course, penalties. I think 2 of them, it might even be 3 of them. And yeah, I'd say Ronan Hale, John White, he'll cause problems as well. I quite like Josh Nisbet as a player as well, in the Ross County midfield. And then for Livingston, I'm really interested to see what Martindale's going to do with the team, because he's took Macaulay Tate out and he's brought Finlayson in. So it doesn't seem like a sort of like for like change, but we'll obviously have to see if it's going to be that way. I don't know what he's going to do. He's obviously got a trick up his sleeve, and we'll have to see what that is. I don't know. He might even move, Jamie Brandon into midfield, because he's done that before. He's obviously played there before, so it's an interesting one.
I just want to ask you guys now. I mean, you know the commentators on Sky and that talking about the first goal being so important to the game. But do you guys see that? Because obviously, 2 years ago today, Partick Thistle went 2-0 up at Dingwall and still lost the match in that famous playoff game. But do you see tonight being different, or how do you see it playing out?
I think it is for one team. I think if Ross County go a goal behind, I think they'll struggle to get back into it, because for me, looking at Ross County this season compared to maybe previous, I think they are a bit lacklustre in that defence. I think it's there to be gotten at by Livingston. Some of their danger men going forward. I think you're right. So just quickly with Finlayson, for what I've seen at the time it was, I think he's more of a natural fullback. So I fully expect he will go a bit deeper, which will be interesting. But I think the first goal is crucial for Ross. I think Ross County need to get the first goal, because if you let Livingston come at you, I honestly worry for that defence of Doncowies. They're shitting goals in the last 10 games, left, right and centre.
Yeah, and in terms of the front players, I think Ronan Hale's clearly the danger man, and Teddy Yengi and Stevie May off the bench. They definitely could be that for David Martindale as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I spoke last week about Tete Yengi. He was a player that I liked while he was in the Premiership last season. He obviously had a good goal scoring return, but he's not been really as effective for Livingston this season, because he's obviously not been starting a lot of games. But yeah, Livingston both teams have got good squads in different ways. Ross County have obviously got the team that's played in the Premiership for a whole season, and they've got decent results in the Premiership. It's not as if they've been a terrible team that's been really, really bad. That was what Livingston were last season when they finished last, because a lot of people didn't think that Livingston would be in this sort of position. I certainly didn't. I thought Livingston would sort of fall away. And that's where you've got to give credit to David Martindale and the players. But Ross County, they're not, neither St Johnstone, they're not teams that have been really, really bad this season. I think they've just been the worst in the Premiership. Although Livingston have been really good recently in the Championship and in the earlier rounds of the playoffs. So
Who do you think?
Really difficult to call.
Who do you guys think needs it more? Because, like, what I mean by the question is, it's probably a daft question, right? But in terms of like, what I think in general, I think I agree with what Robbie said. I think in terms of, I think that Livingston probably need it more because in terms of that fan base, in terms of they've not really got that backing behind them. But I think in terms of Roy McGregor's got a lot of backing, so hopefully he can stay around it. But I just don't know what you guys think.
I think in terms of the clubs, I do think Livingston need to get up tonight. For Ross County, they've obviously been around the block, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be bad if they went down because it would have some financial, obviously, negativities on the budget. But for me, Martindale needs this. Don Cowie needs it just as much. I think Livingston as a club need it more, but I think if you look at the two managers, they maybe just need this the same. Martindale has had such a good season. He's sprung in, that's probably no cheap the amount of transfers he's sprung in. He's probably spent quite a bit of money to get them through the door for tonight as well. So I think he'll need it, but Don Cowie needs it just for the sake of him. 10 games without a win. This is huge for him. Can I just say quickly? Sorry, can I just say quickly one thing we've not touched on? And I got quite frustrated watching the Aston Villa Man United game, and obviously there was some big referee controversy.
Yeah.
Nick Walsh being the referee tonight, he needs to have a good game because this isn't just two clubs going at it in a normal game. This is people's lives we're talking about here. So Nick Walsh tonight and the whole VAR team, they need to have a good game.
See, this is where I'd love to have Des on the show because I know he would tell me that these picking of referees are picked weeks in advance. Like Don Robertson, we knew about that weeks ago, Robbie, that he was going to be appointed, right? But my question is that Nick Walsh has had an absolute howler at Easter Road the last day of the season. He's had an absolute howler on the Wednesday night up at Dundee for Dundee and Ross County. That's one of the reasons why they're in this playoff. And I'm just thinking to myself, surely when he's made two catastrophic errors, you don't put him in that position again. But to play devil's advocate, he is our top referee.
Aye, well, you look at Stephen McLean, who's on VAR. I mean, he's made a few bad decisions early seasons as well. So, I feel for whoever makes the decisions because, it's probably more than one person.
I'm interested in you saying that, Robbie, about Stephen McLean, right? Stephen McLean is not a dedicated VR official. Now, surely you would put a dedicated VR official like Andrew Dallas, who's a dedicated VR official, who's doing VR every day of the week. Surely you would put a person like that in charge. Because for me, I don't understand this. If that guy's being paid to be part of a VAR team and a VAR team only, surely you could put him in charge and you put the best referee.
No, you think so? I mean, tonight again, if anything big happens, the last thing we want is to spend from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock talking about some stupid VAR call. We want to be talking about a good game of football. So if there is to be a big call and it's maybe a controversial one, then it's once again another example of the poor refereeing in this country. And look, I don't like being too negative about the refereeing situation, but it's not just happening in our country. You look at the amount of decisions done in England there the weekend that went wrong up and down the country. So, this isn't just an us issue. This is everywhere you go. Refereeing seems to be a real problem right now. But look, we couldn't let that take away from the game. Hopefully it's a good game of football and hopefully it's two teams getting at each other trying to get up.
Yeah, obviously, thank you for everybody watching. There'll be so many alive, and I appreciate everybody watching. I want to ask you guys finally, what was your prediction for this game?
Ethan, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. I'm gonna say Ross County on penalties after a 2-each draw.
I'm going to say pretty straightforward. I'm going to say 2-0 to Ross County.
All right, well, I'm going the opposite. I'm going a 1-0 draw, and I'm going to go Livingston to take it on penalties.
There we go. That's why everybody's entitled to free speech and different opinions because everyone's got a different take on how the game's going to go. But everybody, please make sure you join us at 10 o'clock. It might not be as good because Michael's on, but I'm promise you it'll be good. But thank you for joining us. It's been great to be involved with you guys, and I'm looking forward to being involved with Michael at 10 o'clock as well. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again at 10.
Right.